data, data collection methods, how to collect primary data, how to design a questionnaire, and then how to use secondary data. If you are using secondary data, how to use them, right? Those basic things we discussed last week. And also we discussed about um, data variable types, scales of measurements, those things we discussed in previous lecture. So today we are going to discuss about descriptive analysis of data. That means before we are going to, as we discussed last week, the statistics basically has two areas, that is descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. So before we are going to do any inferential statistical part, right, first of all we should have an idea about the data set that we are working there. We basically, before we are doing any study, right, it may related to statistics, or it may related to any other fields, right, like your field, right? So you should be able to have an idea about the data set that you already have, right? There we are doing an exploratory data analysis, right? We explore the data set that we have. We discuss the characteristics of your data set, right? Okay, now today we are going to learn how to do this. Now basically, as we all know, right, we can divide, when we were discussing about variables, right, we divided variables into two categories. What were they? What are the variable types that we discussed last week? There were two types of variables. What are they?
Qualitative and
Yes, exactly. Good. So they are qualitative. We can classify a variable as a qualitative variable or a quantitative variable. Sometimes these qualitatives are called as categorical variables, and sorry, qualitatives are called as categorical variables, and quantitative variables are called as numerical variables, right? So today if your variable is a categorical variable, then you have to use a specific set of tools to analyze them. And if you have a numerical variable, then you have to use another set of tools to analyze them, right? So therefore, before you are going to analyze any data set, right, you should, first of all, you should have an idea about whether your data variable is a categorical one or a numerical one, right? Okay, so now so basically in descriptive analysis, what we are doing is we describe the data set by using suitable graphical methods, tabular representations, and also with certain summary measures. If it is a numerical variable, we can use summary measures, right? Later we will discuss what are these things, right? To describe about our variable, about the data set, right? There we are not going to do any predictions or conclusions about a specific population, right? We just using a descriptive data analysis, we just have a kind of a picture of the data set that we have, right? Okay, so this is these are some of the tools, some of the uh, uh, things that we can use to obtain to analyze the variables, right? um, Here, first of all, if your variable is Sorry, so there is a power failure at the moment, so there might be some kind of internet issues. Really sorry for that. Okay, now first of all, let's discuss how to analyze these qualitative variables. Right, basically we use these kind of tools to analyze these qualitative variables. And if it is a quantitative variable, you can use summary measures, and you can use these kind of graphical representations to analyze your numerical variables. So we will discuss one by one in the following slides. Right. So now let's start with analyzing or the presentation of qualitative data. Okay. So basically, right, if you want to represent your qualitative variable, right, qualitative data, you can use one-way tables. That means sometimes they are called as frequency tables, right? And they are used to represent one categorical variable. And here, this is an example for a frequency table, right? Okay, now in here, assume that you have a sample, and you have in this sample you have male and female. There are 35 females and 57 males, right? So if we present this information as a table, then it is called as a frequency table, right? So in the frequency table, basically what we have is, first of all, we have the variable and its categories. Here, the variable is gender and the categories are male and female. Then this is the frequency. This is count කියලා. This is the frequency. How many females are there and how many males are there, right? So this altogether, there are 92 individuals in this sample. So this is the frequency, right? So in this kind of a frequency table, so one-way tables, right, there is another column. Sometimes there is another column, that is the percentage, right? It is more, if you have a sufficient data set, that means if you have a kind of a large data set like this, right? Instead of presenting the uh, categories as a frequency, right? It is better to present these categories using the percentages, because then we can have, the audience can have kind of good picture about your sample, because sometimes they may not have an idea about the the size of may not have an idea about the size of your sample or the population, right? So then if you present these figures as percentages, then uh, they are not much worried about the total count. Then they can have an idea about, a good idea about your about the composition of the sample according to these according to the categories, other than using the frequencies, right? So therefore, as a practice, if you have a sufficient data set, it's better to present the composition of these categories using the percentages, right? And assume that sometimes there is a sample with size 5, right? Sometimes there might be samples like this. In such cases, and sample is size 5, and there are two categories for a specific variable, and what category has 3 and the other category has 2. So in this kind of scenarios, right now, we have a very small sample, and for each category, there are 3 and 2 observations, individuals, right? So in such cases, in that case, it is enough to use the count, because if we convert these values into these frequencies into percentages, then sometimes these results may be misleading, because we convert this into percentages for a very small sample size, right? So in such cases, there is no matter, you can use the frequencies. It's okay to use the frequencies, but if you have a sufficient data set like this, right, a large data set, then it is good to present the category uh, uh, count, or the category composition, right, using the percentages. Okay, and here you know what is this cumulative percentages? Sometimes this is important if you have lots of categories for a specific variable, right? So do you know what is this cumulative percentage? How to calculate this cumulative percentage? And do you know how to calculate these percentages? So this 38.04 is nothing but there are in here, there are 35 females, and altogether there are total is 92 individuals. And if you convert this into 100, then it becomes 38.04. Right? Likewise, for this male percentage, you can get the ratio between 52 and 92 and get the and multiply by 100. Right. Okay, so this is what we call a frequency table. Okay, right. So if you want to note down anything, you can do it now. Okay, I have uploaded a small handout regarding this descriptive data analysis. So you can refer that handout as well. Uh, right. I'm sorry, today I'm not well, so I can't speak loud. So, but if you can't hear me clearly, please let me know, right? Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, madam.
Okay. If you can't, please let me know. Right. So this is about a one-way table. uh, Sometimes, so these one-way tables are used to describe a categorical variable, right? If you have only one categorical variable, here, okay. Now, if assume that here, if you have, right, if you have two variables, before that, I will share this handout with you. Here, um, I have I have a small data set with small description, a small data set in this handout. Here you can see this is the data set that we have, right? So you can enter this data set into. Have you done? Are you familiar with any statistical software? ඔගොල්ලෝ මොන හරි statistical software කරලා තියෙනවද? මීට කලින්? Like Minitab, SPSS. Oh, have you done Excel? Are you familiar with Excel? You can, okay. So you can enter this data set into an Excel worksheet and try to come up with tables and graphs, right? If I have enough, if I have sufficient time, I will let you know how to come up with these outputs. However, there are lots of statistical software at the moment in the world, so you can use any of the statistical software and to come up with these kind of results. So here in this case, you can see there are in this data set there are 5 variables: age, gender, educational qualification, coverage, and sales income. Here you can see some of the you can see the description. What is age? What is gender? A small description is here, right? So I will give you 2 minutes, right? Actually 1 minute is enough. I will give you 2 minutes. First, categorize these variables into qualitative and quantitative, and then identify the scale of measurement. Right? මුලින්ම මේ variables පහ categorize කරන්න qualitative variables quantitative ද කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒක ළඟ scale of measurement එක ලියන්න. We learned about 4 scale of measurements last week: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. So for each variable, you can identify the scale of measurement as well. Right. Now let's do it now. Can you do it now? Do it. Right. So have you categorized them? Right. Now tell me, what is the variable age? Is it categorical or numerical or qualitative or quantitative?
Qualitative.
It's qualitative. Sorry, is it? It's quantitative. It's a quantity. Here you can see age of a representative in years. Right here you can see these are the information of a certain monthly income, those things have been measured. So this age is a numerical variable, right? And the scale of measurement is what? Ratio. Gender, gender is a qualitative variable, that means, or a categorical variable, and it is a nominal scale. And when it comes to educational qualification, then the highest educational qualification, that is, it is also a categorical variable. What is the scale of measurement here? Nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? This is in here. You can see these are, there are categories, but we can order these categories. So then it becomes kind of a ordinal scale variables. Okay. So this is a categorical variable, but in ordinal scale. And the coverage, sales income, both are numerical variables with ratio scale. So here you can see, so if you have time, you can enter this data into Excel worksheet and you can come up with certain results. Okay, so at the beginning, I have given you uh, some spaces are there. So if you are interested, you can if here if when you have free time, you can construct these tables, right? So here you have to construct a one-way table or a free. Okay, now here so basically what you have to do is what you have to do is you have to identify, first of all, you have to count how many males and females are there, and then you can calculate the percentages. You can do this manually or using any software or um, here, this Minitab is one of the popular statistical software. So I have taken these outputs using that Minitab software. I think in your later courses, we will learn about these statistical software. Right. Now let's discuss about a two-way table. Two-way table is, this is kind of a, yeah. Here, in this two-way table, you can represent more than one categorical variable at a time. For example, if you want here in our data set, right, in the data set of sales representatives, there you could identify several categorical variables and several numerical variables. There, if you can remember, there were two variables like gender and educational qualification, right? So both of these are categorical variables. So if you want to see the association between gender and educational qualification, is there any association between gender and educational qualification? How, how the educational qualification, right? Um, Behaves among the males and females, right? What is the male's highest educational qualification in this sample? What is the female's highest educational qualification? Likewise, if you want to see the associations between these kind of categorical variables, then and if you want to present present them using a tabular representation, you can use these two-way tables or contingency tables. If we consider two categorical variables, then we can come up with two-way tables. Right? අපේ variables දෙකක් තියෙනවා අපි two-way table කියලා කියනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් more than two numerical variables. Right? Here we are going to see the associations between, sometimes there may be another variable as the layer variable, right? So however, we want to see, if you want to see the associations between those categorical variables, then you can easily come up with contingency tables and see the relationships, see the associations. Okay, let's look at an example. Here, this is a two-way table, and also I have taken this using the software called Minitab. And actually, if you have Excel, you can easily come up with these kind of graphs. So normally in this contingency table, right, this a detailed table. Basically, simply, if you want to come up with the contingency table, simply what you have to do is you have to include only the frequencies like this. Here, in this case, in this example, you can see at the end you can see the description of a cell. මේ cell එකක description එක මෙතන පෙන්නනවා. First value is here. The first value is the frequency, and then the percentage of row percentages, column percentages, and then the total percentages. I will explain what are these things, right? So this is a detailed one. And if you want to, basically, if you want to come up with the contingency table, right, you can use one variable as a row variable and the other variable as uh, as the other categorical variable. For example, if you consider gender, right, as the row variable, and educational qualification, right, as the column variable, here O level, let's say A level, right? Here you can see, now in this cell you can represent, you can input, right, the the number of males whose educational qualification is O level, right? So this cell represent the individuals, the males whose educational qualification is O level. You can count that number. If it is, let's say, 2, you can put 2 here, right? And here this cell represents how many males are there where the highest educational qualification is A level. Males lagging A level කරපුවා කී දෙනෙක් ඉන්නවද? So you have to put that number here, let's say 10. Likewise, right, for each cell you can put the count, or sometimes we can say it's the frequency, right? Frequency එක ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මේ cell එකේ include කරන්න පුළුවන්. So then it becomes a contingency table, right? And if you want, you can add the percentages as well, like in one way table, in the frequency tables, we, along with the frequencies, we included the percentages into our table, right? So the same thing can be done here, right? You can add the percentages if you want. Sometimes these percentages may be meaningful, right? For example, here in this example, I have taken one example here. I have taken 2 variables. One variable is activity, right? And the other variable is gender. Assume that there we have 2 variables, activity and gender. In the variable activity, you can say here alert, moderate, and slight, right? So these are 3 activity levels. Okay, so they want here we want to see the association between the activity and the gender of this sample. Here, for example, you can see if we consider this 26, that means there are 26 females whose activity level is moderate, like this. Okay, right. So the first value, first figure is the frequency or the count. And this table in this here, you can see this value. What is this value? So this is, if you go to the cell description, these are the raw percentages. What are raw percentages? That means here, how this percentage is calculated. All these 3 are percentages, right? This one, and this one, all 3 are percentages. But this one is the raw percentage, this is the column percentage, and this is the total percentage. So how can you calculate this 74.29? So this can be calculated. So these are the raw percentage. That means you have to consider the raw totals, right? Here in this cell, the frequency is 26. That means there are 26 females with the moderate activity level. And then the raw percentages, we are calculating the raw percentages. So in here, you can see this row represents, if you consider this row represents females. So here, if this row represents females, so this is the total females in the sample. So therefore, if you want to calculate this raw percentages here, this row represents females, so you can have to divide by the total number of females and multiply by 100. 26 upon 35 into 100, then the value will be 74.29, right? So if you want to interpret this value, right? So once you obtain this results, and the next important thing is the interpretation, right? The interpretation is the most important thing. That is what we we have to that is what we have to provide to our audience. So how can you interpret this result? Here you can say, right, out of females, right, out of females, right, the 74.29 has the moderate activity level. Females again, right, from the females, right, 74.29 has the moderate activity level, right? Here basically what we are doing, what they have done is they have first divided the sample into female and male, right? And then if the gender category is female, right? If the gender category is female, here you can see there are nearly 74% of females are there with the moderate activity level, right? Females again 74ක් activity level එක moderate. Similarly, you can interpret this 61.4. You can say here this percentage is calculated as 35 upon, here the total is 57 into 100. So that is this 61.40. Okay. Right. So this is how you can calculate the raw percentages. So this the third column, the third figure, this shows here these values, right? These values, these are the column percentages. Then what happens is the sample first divides according to the activity level. Column percentages තමයි දැන් අපි consider කරන්න යන්නේ, right? So if you want to interpret this 42.62, then what is the column category value? Category, it is the moderate. So then how you can consider, right, out of moderate, out of the individuals whose activity level is moderate, right, 42.62 of them are females. Moderate activity level එක තියෙන අය again 142ක් ඉන්නේ females ලා. කලින් අපි කිව්වේ කවුද? Females ලාගේ among females, right, there are 74.29 ඉන්නවා moderate activity level තියෙන කට්ටිය. Now in the column percentages, you first what happens is the sample divides according to the activity level: lot, moderate, and slight. And then among moderate, we divide into male and female, right? If the activity level is moderate, right, then 42.62 are females, right? And then here, if the activity level is moderate, then 57.38 are males. So if you compare these two percentages, basically you can say if the activity level is moderate, right, majority of them are males, right? Activity level එක moderate කියන එක අපි consider කළොත් ඒකේ වැඩි හරියක් ඉන්නේ activity level එකේ වැඩි දෙනෙක් ඉන්නේ males ලා, right? So that is how you can interpret, you can do the interpretations, right? When you are giving interpretations, don't just tell these percentage values. So that is anyone can see those values. You have to say something else, right? Something more. Okay, so these are the column percentages. And here the finally you can see this is the total percentage. Here this value, the total percentage, these values, right? So here this is calculated. For example, if you want to calculate this percentage, here in this category there are 6, and here altogether now we are considering all the individuals, right? So this is the total percentage. So out of 92, right, we have 6.52 percentage of individuals of males whose activity level is slight, right? In a sample again, right? Slight කියන activity level එක තියෙන males ලා ඉන්නවා. මුළු ඔක්කොගෙම බලුවොත් කීයද නේද? There are nearly 6.52. Likewise, in a contingency table, you may come up with row percentages, column percentages, and the total percentages along with these frequencies. මේ frequencies වලට අමතරව මේ combinations වල frequencies වලට අමතරව ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මෙන්න මේ percentages උත් සමහර වෙලාවට එන්න පුළුවන්. Right? Because you should be able to interpret these results, these percentages properly. Sometimes in some cases, the raw percentages will be useless, and sometimes the column percentages will be useless. So in such cases, you can neglect those percentages and you can interpret only the meaningful percentages. Okay, right. Counts for each combination, and then you can get the uh, relevant percentages. You can get the raw counts, column counts, total count, and then you can easily calculate these raw percentages, total percentages, and the raw percentages. Right? Okay, so this is what we call a contingency table. Okay, so if you want to note down anything, you can do it now. Okay. Right. So that's about a contingency table. Um, right. Now, um, now we come to graphical representations. Here, normally, if you have a categorical variable, right, we can use graphs to describe our categorical variable. There, we can use bar charts and pie charts. Right. So if you have a single categorical variable, you can easily come up with this kind of a simple bar chart. Or if you have more than one categorical variable that you are considering at any specific case, then you can use um, uh, cluster bar charts or stack bar charts. Right, stack bar charts, cluster bar charts, or graph use කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right, so this is an example for a simple bar chart, right? Here, if you consider a bar chart, if you want to draw a bar chart, first of all, in a bar chart, right, your normally your horizontal axis represents your categorical variable. Here, in this case, the categorical variable is the variable gender. Right, and since you have two categories for the variable gender, here you can mark male and female. And here, this axis, the vertical axis, right, you can represent the vertical axis with the frequency or the percentage. ඔගලන්ට vertical axis එක percentage එකක් විදිහට හරි frequency එකක් විදිහට හරි කැමති විදිහකට sorry represent කරන්න පුළුවන්. Here in this given example, you can see the y-axis is the percentage, or the vertical axis is the percentage, right? If you want, you can put the frequency here. But remember that you have to think about the interpretation. That means about you have to think about the audience, right? What is the most appropriate measure, percentage or frequency? You have to decide that according to your sample size. Okay, now here now these are the categories of your categorical variable, and this vertical axis represents the frequency or the percentage. And here for males, for in this case, it is the percentage is nearly 38 point. And you can present a bar here, and here's the for females, it is nearly 62%, right? So likewise, you can draw a separate bar, right? You can draw a separate bar for each category. Right? It can category එක bar එක ගන්න යනවා. However, these bars, the width should be somewhat same. Otherwise, it is not a proper bar chart. And also, if this is a bar chart, another important thing is if you draw a bar chart, right? In between these bars, there should be gaps. There should be a gap. Gap එකක් තියෙනෝනේ අනිවාර්යයෙන්. Right? Because these are just categories. Like continuity or categories. Just these are just categories. You have to put a space in between these bars. Right? Normally, if you have lots of categories, let's say sometimes in some of the categorical variables, there are categories like there are more than 8 categories. For example, if you have a variable like your leisure time activity, right? And here you have, let's say 10 choices. Choices 10ක් විතර තියෙනවා තෝරන්න. Then if you present the results in a bar chart, right, then in a graphical manner, right, if you are using a bar chart, then there should be 10 bars to represent each leisure time activity or each hobby, right? So if you therefore if you have let's say lots of categories for your categorical variable, then this bar chart is more appropriate than the pie chart. Pie chart එකක් බලනකොට category so it is actually this is not a rule, but as a practice, right? If you have more lots of categories for your categorical variable, right, it's better to come up with a bar chart instead of a chart instead of a pie chart, right? And also if you have kind of ordinal variable or ordinal scale categorical variable, then also the bar chart will be uh, more informative, right, instead of using a pie chart, right? And however, you when if you are drawing a bar chart, there should be gaps between the bars. Right, so those are the basic things regarding the bar charts. I think you all know about these bar charts, and you have drawn these things in your O levels. Right. Some of you have mentioned that they can't join the lecture because they are still traveling. Okay, no matter, you can refer. I don't know about the attendance, right? However, please refer the lecture recordings, and if you have any, if you need any clarification, please send me an email or put your questions, your problems in the Google Classroom. Then I can help you, right? Okay, and also if you when we are discussing these things, if you have any, if you need any clarification, just please ask about these things. Okay, right. Okay, so this is about a simple bar chart. So if we go back to our lecture note, here you can see, here this is the if you can remember, this was our data set, right? And here, as I mentioned earlier, there are variables like gender, educational qualification, coverage, and those things. Here we have two categorical variables. So we have represent these two, the composition of these two categorical variables in this contingency table. Here you can see, right? If you look at this contingency table, your row variable is the gender, and the column variable is the educational qualification. And here you can see, if you consider the females, right, majority of their highest educational qualification is O level. Females the consider educational qualification O level, right? If you consider males, right, if you consider males, okay, if you consider males, right, out of males, more majority of their highest educational qualification is A level. Likewise, those things are the important facts that we can identify by looking at this kind of a two-way table or contingency table, right? So you have to grab those information very carefully. So here, let's come to this pie chart later. Here, this is the bar chart, simple bar chart. You can see we discussed this one earlier. You can easily get the bar chart. You can easily draw this one manually as well, right? Here, now assume that if you have more than one categorical variable, like in contingency tables, right? Like this. Here in this case, you can come up with the cluster bar chart, right? So here you can see how the activity levels, right? Lot, moderate, and slight. How these activity levels behave along with in the category within the categories of the variable gender. Gender එකේ categories ඇතුලේ කොහොමද මේ activity level එක behave වෙන්නේ කියන එක ඔයගලන්ට මෙතනින් observe කරන්න පුළුවන්. Here if you want to come up with this kind of a cluster bar chart, right, this kind of an output, first you have to think about what is the variable that you consider first. Now, in this case, right, in this case, if this is your sample, if this is your, sorry, if this is your sample, first you have divided your sample according to the variable gender, male and female. Gender wise, මුලින්ම ඒගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? Male, female විදියට මේගොල්ලෝ දෙකට බෙදා ගන්න. Now you have another two subsamples. This in this portion you have only males, and in this part you have only females, right? So this is here what they have done, right? And then inside each of these two groups, right, they are going to divide this subset again according to the other categorical variable, lot, moderate and slight. Here same thing is there, lot, moderate and slight, like this. Okay, so if you draw this cluster bar chart, again your x-axis, normally your x-axis is your categorical variable. First we divide according to the variable gender, male and female, and then inside males, right, we get the frequencies for the other category. Males lagging කොච්චරක් ඉන්නවද moderate activity level එක තියෙනවා, slight activity level එක තියෙනවා කොච්චරක් ඉන්නවද, right? You can put those figures as a percentage or the frequency. So this is what we call the cluster bar chart. You can see this is somewhat like a cluster. මේ හරියට clusters වගේ, right? එක group එකක් වගේ. Females ලා ඇතුලේ කොහොමද group in වෙන්නේ අනිත් variable එක. Likewise. So this is what we call a cluster bar chart, right? Okay, so the same information can be represented using only two bars, right? Using only two bars. මේ representation එක මේ figures ම අපිට represent කරන්න පුළුවන් වුණා මේ bars දෙකකින් විතරයි, right? So then that is called as a stack bar chart, like this. ඔන්න අපිට පුළුවන් ඔය information instead of using three separate bars, right, for the categories of the next categorical variable, right, you can use the previous bar. You can use only one bar do the representation. So that is what we call the stack bar chart. Before we are moving to the stack bar chart, if you want to note down anything about this cluster bar charts, you can do it now. All right. Now this is the cluster, this is the stack bar chart. Here the same thing happens, right? The same information is there, but instead of these kind of three bars, right, we represent the composition of the second variable in the same bar for the category of the previous categorical variable, right? මේ gender කියන categories වලට අදාළ bars වලම ඊළඟ categorical variable එකේ categories වලට අදාළ figures ටික අපි mark කරනවා. Then it becomes and then we say it as a stack bar chart. අපි ඒකට කියනවා stack bar chart එකක් කියලා, right? The same thing happens. First we divide the sample according to the variable gender, and inside the categories of the variable gender we divide according to the other category. right? අනිත් categorical variable එකේ categories අනුව අපි මොකද කරන්නේ? අපි මෙන්න මේ විදිහට එකම bar එක ඇතුලේ අපි categorize කරනවා. So this is what we call the stack bar chart. Right, all these things can be obtained using statistical software, including Excel. Right, so don't worry about these things. Therefore, however, you should know the background and you should know how to interpret these results. Right, so that is the must. Right. So if you want to note down anything, you can do it now. Right, so that's about the stack bar chart. Right, now these are the pie charts. So you can use the pie charts also to describe your categorical variable. Right, pie charts අපිට use කරන්න categorical variables අපිට represent කරන්න. So do you know how to draw a pie chart? Pie charts and the විදිහ දන්නවද? Can you remember how to draw these pie charts? For example, assume that you have a table like this. You have gender, variable is gender, male and female, right? Male count is, let's say, can you hear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now okay.
Right, thank you. So if you want to now if you want to come up with this kind of a pie chart, right? First of all, you have to get the ratio and you have to multiply. Now here this is a circle. මේ circle එකේ right කොච්චරක් අපි mark කරන්න ඕනද කියන එක. Right? මෙන්න මේ angle එක, you have to decide what is the angle. So along with the ratio, you have to, if you want, you have to get the angle. So how can you get the angle? Here, let's say, how can you get the angle for males? 25 into what you have to do? මේ proportion එක මොකද කරන්න ඕනේ? මේ angle එක ගන්න. Any idea? We have to multiply by 100 or any other value. This is a pie chart. So this is a circle. Now we want to identify, we want to calculate the angles of these slices. මේ slices වල angle එක අපිට දැනගන්න ඕනේ. Right? What is the total angle around a circle, around a certain point? Can't you see the screen?
We can see the screen one, but still in there simple bar charts.
Oh, sorry. So can you see this now?
Yeah, no.
Okay. So may chart එකේ හිතන්න, for example, you have the variable gender, right? Male and female, right? You have, let's say, 25 males and 75 males and 25 females කියලා, right? So if you want to get the angle of these, what is this angle and what is this angle? How can you get this angle? First, you have to get the ratio. If we get the angle for the female, right, out of 100, there are 25 females, and you have to multiply this by which value? 100 or any other value?
360.
Exactly. You have to multiply by 360 because if you consider a certain point, the angle over a certain point is 360. So you have to multiply this by 360, right? And get the angle value. And here you can get the you can mark this the relevant slice. Okay, so likewise, you can come up with a pie chart. Actually, since we have uh, lots of tools, right, like statistical tools, even Excel, right, we are now at the moment we are not going to draw these things manually, but you should. So that's about a pie chart. So all these, and also if you want, you can come up with a composite pie charts as well. Pie chart, if you have, if you're going to see the association between two or more categorical variables, then you have to use this kind of a composite pie chart, right? Okay, so this is how you can come up with pie charts. So all these things, the frequency tables, contingency tables, bar charts, pie charts, all these things are used to describe categorical variables or qualitative variables. So these things are not valid for quantitative variables. So that is the most important thing, right? මේවා අපිට quantitative variables measure කරන්න, එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒවා present කරන්න මේ outputs අපිට හරියන්නේ නැහැ. Right? You have to think about any other solution. Okay. So that's about how to present qualitative variables, right? Now we have to discuss how to present quantitative variables. ඊළඟට අපි බලන්න ඕනේ quantitative variables කොහොමද අපි represent කරන්න කියලා, right? Okay. Now let's discuss about presentation of quantitative data. Quantitative data අපි present කරන විදිහ තමයි දැන් ඉගෙන ගන්න යන්නේ. So here I have mentioned only few of the measurements and graphical methods, right? So when it comes to quantitative variables, right, basically, right, we are using summary measures, right? If you want to describe a quantitative variable, or sometimes we call this as numerical variable, right? Numerical variable එකක් අපි describe කරනවා නම් we are using, right, we are using summary measures. So what are these summary measures? Here you can see in the slide, you can see the explanation for that. Summary measures summarize basic features of a data set, right? So if you want to have an idea about a certain numerical variable, right? Then you have to use their summary measures. It is something like this, right? For example, if you want to describe your sibling or your uh, girlfriend or your boyfriend, right, your partner, to someone else that has that someone else, but that person hasn't seen, right, your partner or your sister or brother earlier. But how can you describe her or him? How can you describe to your about your partner or about your sibling, right, to someone else? You are using their basic features. You use you can say my brother is 28 years old, right? He is a tall person, right? He's a tall, fair looking person, right? He has a curly hair, right? Using certain features, right, we can give we can build a kind of an imagination, right, in imagination to another party, right? So similarly, if you want to have an idea about a certain numerical variables, right, you can use specific characteristics, specific features, right, of that numerical variable. අපි අපේ partner ගැන හරි අපේ brother හරි sister හරි කෙනෙක් ගැන අපි දැකපු නැති කෙනෙකුට විස්තර කරනවා. අපි විස්තර කරන්නේ උස කෙනෙක්, curly hair තියෙන කෙනෙක්, ටිකක් කෙට්ටු කෙනෙක්. ඒ වගේ එහෙම අපි එක එක යාගේ characteristics features එයාගේ features use කරලා තමයි අපි යා ගැන describe කරන්නේ. කොට අනිත් party එකට එයා දැකපු නැති කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවනම් එයාට ඔන්න පික්චර් එකක් බිල්ඩ් අප් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. මෙයා මේ වගේ කෙනෙක් වෙන්න ඇති කියලා. Right? Same thing happens in summary measures, right? In summary measures, using summary measures, right? These summary measures summarize the basic features of a certain numerical variable. Okay, so what are these basic features? So if you want to describe a numerical variable, a quantitative variable, basically if you can describe basically about these things, right, especially this red colored information, right, then we can have a good picture about our numerical variable. Right, මෙන්න මේ features ටික අපිට අදාළ numerical variable එක ගැන අපිට මෙන්න මේ features ටික අපිට explain කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් එහෙනම් අපිට පුළුවන් එයා numerical variable එක ගැන අපිට idea එකක් අරගන්න. So what are these features? The first one is the measures of central tendency. Right? So this is the measures of central tendency. So what is the meaning of this? That means, right? That means if you want to have an idea about, right, the center of the data set, right? If you want to have an idea about the center of a data set, right, then you can use the measures of central tendency. ඔගලගේ data set එකේ basically this measures of central tendency, right, it gives an idea about the center of your data set. Data set එකේ center එක ඔගලගේ variable එක ඔගල consider කරන variable එකේ center එක ගැන idea එකක්. Middle value එක, you can write around which value most data are that will be identified, right, using the method. Okay, so what are can you remember what are the central tendency measurements that you already know? Data set එක cent එක ගැන, middle value එකක් ගැන idea එකක් ගන්න ඕගලන්ට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් measures මොනවද? ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙන measures මොනවද? For example, if you have a variable called statistics marks, ඔයගලන්ගේ statistics marks කියලා variable එකක් තියෙනවා. Or statistics marks, right? If you have, let's say, in your class, assume there are 40 students, right? These 40 students have different statistics, different marks, mark for statistics. So if you want to have an idea about the middle value, the center, or around, if you want to have an idea about a specific value, that means that around that value, most of your marks are scattered or distributed. So what are the measurements that you can obtain to discuss about the center? Data set එකේ marks වල center එකක් ගැන කතා කරන්න. අපිට මොනවද පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් measurements? මැද value එකක් ගැන කතා කරන්න, middle value එකක් ගැන කතා කරන්න. මොනවද අපිට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් measurements? Any idea? So have you heard about, right? If you have this kind of marks, right? So have you heard about most of the times we are dealing with the average value or the mean value, right? Mean එක average එක කොහොම කියලා අපි කතා වෙන ඕගොල්ලෝ අහලා තියෙනවද? What is this? What is the mean value? Average value කියන්නේ මොකද්ද ළමයි? What is the mean? Average value කියලා කිව්වම average marks. Right? අපි කියනවා the average statistics marks for in your class is 75. Class එකේ average marks, average statistics marks අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙම 75. What is the meaning of that? Right? අපිට මේක කියන්නකෝ. If your class, right, in your class the average statistics marks is 75, right? There is another class, let's say weekday batch, right? In the weekday batch, right? You are weekend batch again. In weekday batch, right? Their average statistics marks is 54. Right? ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ average statistics marks තියෙන්නේ 54. ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ average statistic mark එක 75. Which group is better? If you compare these two, which one is better? Weekday group, weekday group or weekend group? Weekday group එකේ average stat marks තියෙන්නේ 52. Weekend group එකේ average statistics mark is 75. So which group is better? No idea? කවුද හොඳ කියලා idea එකක් ගන්න බැයිද?
Weekend.
Hmm? එහෙම හිතමුකෝ. There are two players, right? both have played 10 matches, right? Batsmanla දෙන්නෙක් ඉන්නවා. ඒගොල්ලෝ දෙන්නම matches 10ක් play කරලා තියෙනවා. Right? The first player, right? Let's say player A, his average for these 10 matches is 72. For player B, the average for player B is 44. Who is better, player A or B?
Player A.
Guys, can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Player A.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you can hear. But I can't hear your answers. I don't know why. Okay. So here in that sense, yeah, the player A is better than player B because his average is somewhat average is higher. That means in all 10 matches he has scored around 75. Yeah, 75 වටේ values වල තමයි average මේ එයා play කරලා තියෙන්නේ. Right? එතකොට it's the measure, it is a measure of central tendency. That means we can we using the measures of central tendency, we can have an idea about the center of the your data set, around which value that most data are scattered or distributed, right? So that is the simple meaning of measures of central tendency. And then the next important feature is measures of dispersion. How your data set is dispersed, right? Is it whether the dispersion is high or whether the dispersion is low, right? If you want to see about the variation, right? Dispersion or the variation about the of your data set, then you can use these measures of dispersion. And if you can have an idea about the shape of your distribution, right? If you can give an idea about the shape of your distribution, then you can describe your numerical variable more and more informatively, right? So basically, if you want to describe your numerical variable, you can use these. Basically, you can use these three, and then you can have you can give a kind of a good picture about your numerical variable, and also these measures of location and measures of association and correlation. These things are also important, right? Now let's discuss these measures of central tendency. Basically, we are discussing about three measures of central tendency: mean, median, and mode, right? So let's see what is this mean, median, and mode. I think you already know about these things, right? So if you want to calculate right. Here, if you want to calculate the mean, this is how you can do the calculation. right? ඔයගොල්ලෝ mean එක calculate කරන මම හිතන්නේ හැමෝම දන්නවා. Right? If you are consider the population, and if n is your population size, right? Number of observations in the population. If it is capital N, what if you want to calculate the mean value, what you have to do is you have to add all the numbers and then divide by the total number of observations in your population. Or if it is your sample, then you have to add. Normally we use this mu, the notation mu. This is important when you are doing inferential statistics, right? If this is the population, then the population mean. In statistics, we use mu to denote the population mean, right? And here, this is how you can calculate the population mean. And similarly, if your variable is x, then sample mean can be denoted as x bar. අපි x කියලා අපි variable එක ගත්තොත් x bar කියන එකෙන් අපිට පුළුවන් sample mean එක අපිට denote කරන්න. Then again, what you have to do the same thing. You have to add all the numbers, all the values, and divide by the total number of observations in your sample. Then you can calculate the simple arithmetic mean. Right? So this is what we call the simple arithmetic mean. Right? So there are other means. Actually, sometimes you may want to calculate the weighted mean, right? Geometric mean, harmonic mean. Okay, so those are some other types of means. Then the formula is somewhat different from this. Okay, right. So this is what we if you want to note down these things, you can do it now. Okay, now let's discuss about the median, the next central tendency measurement. So in the median is the middle value of your data set, right? Median එක කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලන් data set එකේ තියෙන මැද value, මැද අගය. And here, if you want to calculate the median manually, first of all, you have to do is you have to arrange your data set according to ascending or descending order. මුලින්ම ඔයගොල්ලෝ මොකක්ද කරන්න ඕනේ? median එක calculate කරන්න තිබ්බොත් එහෙම, first of all, you have to arrange your data set according to a certain order. And then, right, so this is the formula. If you have, for example, if you have 5 observations in your data set, right, then what you have to do is n is 5 plus 1 over 2. That means 5 plus 1, 6 over 2 is 3. Then the third item is your what? Median, right? 3 is the median. The third observation is the median, right? So if you want to count the third observation, first of all, you have to arrange your data set according to a specific order, right? Because median එක කියලා කියන්නේ හරිය මැද තියෙන value එක. So then by the definition, right, if you have numbers from this point to this point, right, here median will be a value somewhere here. And so this is the median value, and here from this median value, right, 50% of your observations lie below the median, and another 50% of the observations lie above the median value, right? So this is the definition for the median. So if we consider the median, right, there are 50% of the observations above the median, and another 50% of the observations are lying below the median. That means the median is the middle point of your data set, right? So if you want to calculate the median, you have to arrange your data set according to a certain order, Right. Now here, look at this example. Now you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here there are 7 observations, right? Now, if you want to calculate the median, you have to add 7 plus 1 over 2. That means 7 plus 1, 8, 8 over 2, 4. 4 is not the median. The fourth observation is the median. So once we can arrange these values into a certain order, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is the median value. And this is what happens if you have odd number of total observations. So this 7 is an odd number. Then you can easily get the value for the median. And assume that sometimes there may be even number of observations in your sample or the population. So in here, you can see there are for 8 observations. So if you have 8 observations, 8 plus, you have to do the same thing, 8 plus over 2. That means here 8 plus 1, 9. 9 over 2 means here 4.5. This observation should be there. Now there are no any point called 4.5. There what you have to do is you have to consider the fourth observation and the fifth observation and then get the average of these two. That means you have to add fourth observation 29 plus 30 and divide by 2. 4.5 observation එක නෝනේ කියන නිසා මේ දැන් add කළා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ average එක ගන්න. Then 29.5 is the median value. Right? So this is how you can calculate the median if there are even number of observations in your data set. If you want to note down these things, you can do it now. Okay. Now, assume that here you have a data set like this, right? You have in your data set, data set, you have observations like this. You have observations like 12, 15, 13, 14, 16, something like this. This is one data set. And you have another data set, right? Let's mark it in blue color, green color. You have 12, 15, 13, 14, and here you have 198, right? You have two data sets, data set 1 and 2, right? For example, if you have the first data set, right, the blue color one, what is the most appropriate central tendency measurement? Mean or median? ඔය පළවෙනි data set එකට හොඳ cent එක ගැන කතා කරන්න හොඳ කවුද? Mean or median? I can't hear you. Hear you. So if you can, you can put your answer in the chat box. In this case, right? Here you can see most of the data points are somewhat closer, and here you can use the mean to describe about the center. But if you have this kind of an observations, right? Is it okay to use the mean? Right? මේ වගේ observation set එකක් තිබ්බොත් ළමයි mean එක use කරන්න හොඳද center එක ගැන කතා කරන්න? in this kind of scenarios, can we use mean to describe about the center of these data sets? This green color data set. Center එක ගැන කතා කරන්නේ මේ green color data set එක හොඳයිද? It is not good. The reason is, right, it's okay. You have the first four numbers are somewhat closer, and after that there is right. Can you see an extreme whether it's 198 is a very large number compared with these four numbers. Then if you calculate the mean value for these numbers, right, then that mean value will be a value near to that value will be greater than let's say, can you calculate the mean value for these numbers? මේ දෙවෙනි සෙට් එකට මීන් එක කැල්කියුලේට් කළා කියන්නේ මට කීයද කියලා? The mean value will be 50.4. Mean එක උතන 50.4 කියලා. Right? So that value, does this value represent the center of this data set? 50.4 කියන එක මේ data set එකේ center එක ගැන middle value එක ගැන idea එකක් අපිට දෙනවද? Does it give an idea about the middle value of this data set, this kind of a data set? No. The reason is because of this 198, the mean value is shifted toward this extreme value. So in such case, right, the mean is not suitable to describe the center. In this case, the median is the best tool, because in the median, right, we are not going to add all the numbers. Here in the median, we get the middle point. Once we arrange the data set according to a certain order, let's say if we arrange the values to according to a certain order, 13 and then 14, 15 and 198, then here this 14 will be, this value will be the median value. And here, right, compared with the mean value, right, this median gives you a proper idea about the center of this data set. So if in your data set, if you are working with a data set with extreme values, right, then median is better than mean to describe about the center of the data set. Right, extreme values තියනවා නම් අපි ගාව අපේ data set එකේ mean එකට වැඩිය ළමයි median එක තමයි අපිට center එක ගැන කතා කරන්න හොඳ central tendency measurement එක. Right, so therefore, though there are mean, median and mode, you have to decide which central tendency measurement is appropriate for the given scenario. Right? Okay. The reason is, right, mean is affected by extreme values, but median is not affected by extreme values, right? So in mean, in the calculation of mean, right, each value play an equal role. And value එකම equal role එකක් play කරනවා mean එකේදී. Right? So therefore, if we have extreme values in the data set, then when we are calculating mean, then it will be affected by those extreme values, right? So if your data set doesn't contain any extreme values, then mean is appropriate to describe about the center. But if you have this kind of extreme values, right, then median is better, because the minimum value and the maximum value there is no any for the no any influence for the median from the minimum or the maximum value of your data set. Okay, so that is why you have to think about the appropriate center tendency measurement before you are using them. Now I think you have now you know what is the difference between mean and median and where to use those measures. And the mode is the highest frequency, highest the mode is the value which has the highest frequency. For example, if you have a data set like this, if you have a data set like, let's say, 12, 13, 13, 13, 14, 19, like this, what is the mode for this data set? So the 13 appears three times. So therefore, the other values appear only one time. So therefore, the mode is 13. Right? Sometimes this certain scenarios. Right. For example, if you want to see now here, if you have assumed that you have a factory which manufactures shirts, men's shirts, right? And you want to now you have a specific design of a certain shirt, and you want to have an idea about the quantity of the production according to the collar size, right? Collar size එක consider කළාම කොච්චර quantity එකක් ඔයගලන්ට produce කරන්න ඕනද? වැඩිපුරම produce කරන්න ඕන මොන collar size එකෙන්ද? ඒ වගේ experiment එකක්, ඒ වගේ අපිට study එකක් කරන්න ඕනේ වුණොත්, in such cases what you can do is you can consider a specific you can select a specific sample, and what you can do is you can get the color size of each and every individual in your sample. One might say the color size is let's say one might say that his color size is 15, then 15.5. The other one says here 15, 15.5, then 15.5, 16, 16.5, again 15. Likewise, you have the color sizes for the individual of these samples. Then you can see, okay, if you consider these color sizes, you can see 15.5 is the color size which has which most of the individuals in this sample, right? මේ sample එකේ වැඩිපුරම තියෙන 15.5 color size එක තියෙන කට්ටිය. Therefore, right, you can assume that you can decide to manufacture, right, more shirts from this color size, right? මේ color size එකෙන් වැඩිපුර අපිට shirts අපිට produce කරන්න පුළුවන් අනිත් ඒවාට comparatively, right? Likewise, in such cases, mode plays an important role. There it is not suitable to use mean or the median, because if we get the average mean value, average color size, right? මේගොල්ලන්ගේ average calculate කරොත් it might be some value. Let's say the value might be 15 point, let's say 15 point. Let's say 15.248, something like that. But this value is not a standard color size. මේ color size එක standard color size එකක් නෙමෙයි. අපි දන්නවා අපි shirt එකක් ගන්න එකත් color sizes, standard color sizes තියෙනවා. 15, 15.5, 16, 16.5, 17, likewise. So in this case, in this kind of scenarios, the mean is not useful. Here, in such cases, you can use the mode to have an idea about the most frequently occurred item, right? So, however, all these mean, median, and mode, all these are measures of central tendency. All these things discuss about the center of your data set. මේ හැම එකම අපේ data set එකේ center එක ගැන. මොන value එක වටේද අපේ data distribute වෙලා තියෙන, අපේ observations scatter වෙලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා අපිට idea එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. Right? So that is about the measures of central tendency. Okay, next we have to discuss about these quartiles before we are moving to the measures of dispersion. Okay, now it's near, it's 10:25. I think it's better to start start this by next week. So yeah, so we'll discuss these things next week. Next Monday we can meet. And we can discuss these measures of locations, measures of dispersion, and all these things, right? So I think it's better to stop the class now.